Okay, good morning. The 6th of Adar, getting closer to Purim. Adalayada. Adalayada is higher than reason. So Hashem should bless all who are sick with a healing that's beyond what we could expect and is faster than we could expect. Who needs a healing?
Shmuel ben Devoraleah, Shmuel ben Merav, Hillel ben Hilo, Baruch Yehuda ben Yehudas, Yehudas Golda Basili Zahana, Haim Yaakov Zeb ben Sarah, Yosef Yotzak ben Leor, Shoshana Baschana, Gary Roberts, son of George, Yaakov Shal ben Hannah Miriam, Yehudit Gila Bas Rachalea.
For Shlema Bekorev,
Amen.
Tuvia ben Avram, Yair ben Adela, Mordechai Yehuda ben Chana, Israel ben Yomin ben Leah Gittel, Devor Leah bas Rus Ahuva Liba, Rivka Mina bas Haya Esther, Refuah Shlema.
Menachem Yehuda Nisan ben Rezel Tivya, Malka Sima bet Mindel Rezel, Refuah Shalema.
Refuah Shlema v'koreh mamash.
Shalom Dov Bear ben Rachel Bela, and today is my dad's yurtzeit, so I do have the class in his merit, Nusin Meir ben Adar Kasriel.
Amen. On the day of the yurtzeit, we say that what's happening in the day of the yurtzeit is in the Neshama is having an aliyah, an elevation, and every elevation produces a larger effusion of godliness. And in Lubavitch, we add, and I don't know if it's the custom other places we say, Neshama shel haben an aliyah, upoil Yeshua's b'kerev ha'oretz. It's a pasuk, and that which goes up and explodes upward should come down and rain blessing on all of us down here below.
Beautiful, thank
you. Yeah. Okay, 6 of Adar. Really good Rabbi writes, from my father's sichot, he's quoting from the father's Rabbi Rashav's sichos. So it is a phenomenally great benefit when the Almighty, may he be blessed, grants a person merit and he acquires a feel, a gefühl, a kriegt chush, it says in Yiddish. He has a feel and a sense of pleasure for doing kindness to another, to the point that the other person becomes more precious to him than his own self. Or he may find a number of reasons why he deserves his own tribulations, God forbid, but to do so with regard to another's suffering is absolutely impossible. Page 412, 411 in Lessons in Tanya. And in Lakuti Amorim. Top of page Mem, 3 lines down over on the left. Okay, so yesterday we focused on the difference between depression and bitterness. Depression, no. It leads you, it's the symptom of depression is, or another way of looking at the symptom of depression is, well, you're down, right? And in addition, you're closed up. And that's not going to do anything except make you feel bad. But that feel bad that may have been caused by a self-examination, concern about what could be and what you could be and you're not, can be transformed into bitterness about that. So that the depression itself, the darkness itself, becomes a tool for bringing about light. And that notion is summarized by the saying of our sages that from the forest comes the handle of the axe which fells, which cuts down the forest. The point of that all is to transform the sadness into bitterness, the bitterness into drive, and the drive into simcha. And that's where we are right now. The achachach after that, which we just spoke about, Yover l'dei simcha amitis, one will come to true simcha. When a person puts upon his heart, literally, to redouble himself, redouble his comfort. After these words of truth, which is the words of truth where I don't like the situation that I'm in, I'm not, however, going to be drawn down into the gullus of being confined and limited by it. I'm going to break through it. So after these words of truth, now, one says to his heart, yes, it's true, believe suffix without a doubt, that I am, or at least I have been, far away from Hashem. Any sign of depression, any sign of the opposite of simcha, is a sign of disconnection from Hachai Achayim, the life of lives. So yes, if I'm in that state, then it's true that I'm so-called distant from Hashem, but tachlis, and utterly distant from Hashem, and I am in that state, in a state of being despicable and contemptible. However, kol zehu ani lavadi. Remember, he says, this is only me. Remember back a few pages back, I tried to find it, I don't remember when, the Alter Rebbe pointed out that the brucha that we say in the morning, the beginning of davening before we start Birchas HaShachar, Neshama shenasati bi teherahi. We say that the godly soul which is put in me is pure. So there's a godly soul and there's a me. And the me, the starting place of the me, is the animal soul with its contingent Yetzer Hara. We wake up and the first thing that we discover is that we're alive, Baruch Hashem. And that enlivenment is from the animal soul. That's the be, right? So this state of negativity is only from the perspective of the be. Ani, here he calls it the I, the awakening in the morning, the first I, the eye of the Nefesh Bahamis in the Sitra Achra, which he says, Hu Aguf, which is the body. That's the Ani, the Neshama Shanti Bi. This is the body, Im Nefesh HaChayuna Shaboy, with the enlivening animal soul. Avol, yes, true, but there's also within me something else, which is a part of Hashem Mamish. Even the lightest of the light, the people who are farthest away, the Jewish people who are any person who's farthest away, treating Torah mitzvahs very lightly, almost not at all, has a nefesh elokis. Shehi nefesh elokis, which he now says is the godly soul. Nitus elokus mamish, with the spark of godliness mamish, hamalubish ba, which is enclosed within it, lahachayaisa, to enliven it. But this godly spark, though is there, present in every single Jew, in the state of darkness that one may find oneself in, God forbid, that godly soul is in a state which we call gullus. And this can be extrapolated out from the microcosm that we're talking about, the self, into the entire world. To the extent that it doesn't have a feel, or as we said, in Hayom Yom, one doesn't have a feel for godliness, that's called galus. The aim came, Adar, on the contrary, kol masha ani betakos harichog, however far I have been, so to speak, far away from godliness, Hashem, and have been in a state of despicability and contemptibility. That's a sign that I have a nefesh elokis, but it's in a state of galus. Gadol Yosef, a very big state of galus. And one should have compassion, pity, compassion on her, on that godly soul which is in a state of galus, very much. And with this, we should apply, with all this awareness that we've just been cultivating in the beginning of this page, we should cultivate, put upon our heart, use all our magmotzi, all of our effort, bechefsi, and all of our desire, To take this godly spark and bring it out and elevate it from this gullus. From the captivity, and bring it el beis aviha, and bring it back to the house of your father the way it was at the beginning. Before it was enclosed in my body. What was the state of the soul before it was enclosed in my body? It was included in the light of Hashem Yisborach, and was completely and utterly united with him. And you know what? It is now the same case. Cain. So it is now. And it's just that the animal soul is covering over this continual reality, which is that the nefesh elokis is always a part of God and always available to be, and there's always available to be exposed and uncovered the godliness which it embodies. Because it's kalulim yischedes b'yisborach, it's included in Hashem. And how do you do? Because you're asim kol magmoisei, and all you have to do, it's not so easy, just apply all of your effort and all of your attention. B'toida u'misvus, focus, eved, do the avodah, bring yourself to the work of Torah u'misvus, the halbish behen kol eser b'chinos, and let the Torah and the misvus enclose all of your 10 powers. Ubefrat, specifically, b'mitzvus tefillah, davening, l'tzoikel Hashem b'tzarlo, to cry out to Hashem in your pain and suffering. And what are you suffering from? The galus, migaluta, from the galus. Begufoy, when the soul is in the state of galus, begufoy, in the body, in the despicable attraction and drawing down of the bodiness to the mundane, and God forbid, even to the profane. To take it out of its captivity. Put all of your efforts is there, right? It's a treasure house. If you knew there was a buried treasure and you could retire for the rest of your life, you'd go for it. Well, there is a buried treasure, and going for it is geula. So go for it. Lehatzir, to take it out from its captivity. Uladavke b'yisborach, and to cling to Hashem. May He be blessed. Bezuhi bechinas teshuva, and that's what we call shuva. Huh? It's a nice, different definition of shuva, right? Not shamnu v'gadnu, right? It's restoring myself to who I really am, what I really am. This is called shuva. Umaisim tovim, and this is what is called good deeds. Right? A good deed is something which reveals the goodness, and the ultimate goodness, of course, is the holiness and the oneness of Hashem. Shehin maisim tovim, that's why we call them good deeds. What are they good for? To return the soul, which is the part of God, to its source. Bishor shoy, the kol almim. And what is its source? The source is the root of all worlds. That's today's Tanya. Well, a little energy there. Anybody got any comments or questions?
It's interesting that it talks about crying out and verbal, that, and Chabad davening doesn't express that form. I mean, conventionally.
Conventional Chabad davening.
Right.
Right. Well, he's not talking, really, I know what you're saying. Of course, I think all of us know what you're saying. But he's giving you, well, don't fall into that. If that's not, if the conventional approach, could be for some, and I know people like this, it's enough to just put your quiet attention there. But if it isn't enough, and he's talking about situations where it isn't enough because you're seeing it's not working, then cry out, and really use the doubt. Well, it's very clear. I don't have to repeat his words. Cry out to Hashem. Literally.
But it's interesting that, I mean, from what we've seen even with elderly Hasidim, you don't even hear about this unless it's just a private expression.
You hear about it a lot in Breslov Hasidim.
Yes, right, Breslov. This is right. Breslov.
Don't forget that, I mean, or I put it positively, remember, Rabbi Nachman and the Alter Rebbe came from the same source, the Baal Shem Tov. It's just that the emphasis is very different, and it is very different. I'm not nearly as steeped in Breslov Hasidus as I am in Chabad Hasidus, but it is very different and emphasized there. And you're right, you don't find it emphasized a lot in Chabad, but here is Chabad, and we're emphasizing it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there is power. I mean, we all know this, that if you're in pain, you can hold, and just let's talk simply, physical pain. I'm sure everyone's had the experience. If you hold it in, it's much harder to dissolve it than if you cry. Crying releases. So it's the same with spiritual pain as well. And that's the advice, at least one of the advices here. I mean, the other advice, we started with before the crying out is the meditative position, meditation, contemplation, realization in one's mind and thought that if I'm locked in depression or sadness, it's a trick of the Yetzer Hara. Think about that. And the Yetzer Hara, back to our mushal again of the seducer and the princess and the prince, really wants us to break, the seducer really wants us to break that darkness. And they're all kind of, I'm just talking through a lot of simple, of meditative, contemplative approaches as well, which we've been advised to. But of course, in addition to all that, is just crying out. Anybody else? Comment? Question? All right, I think it's pretty clear what to do today, if it's applicable. And we'll meet again tomorrow. Oh, comment? Someone else?
It's not really common. I just noticed that instead of using a hey, you used the aleph. I don't really know if we can make anything from it.
Where?
The very last line, limkorat v'shosha.
Limakora. I think that's because it's, I think that's Aramaic. Limakora v'shosha, I think.
He's speaking Hebrew the whole time, and then instead of doing
I think so, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But I think so, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, well, thank you for this class.
But it would be different, yeah. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.